Welcome back to the class, everyone. Today we are going to be continuing on in our roster building mini-series of prepping for a Galactic Legend. So what do we mean by that? What is prepping for a Galactic Legend? As many of you probably know, when you're going after one of them, you need to gear, relic, mod, farm, everything, about 15 characters. And the whole point of this video is for us to go through and say, hey, since you can't do all 15 or 16 or whatever of those characters at the same time, these are the ones that you should farm first. They're going to bring the most value to your roster, and then we're going to order them all the way down so that you leave all the garbage for last. And one other thing that we're going to do, and you can probably already tell by looking at this screen, we're not just going to be taking a look at the raw requirements, but we're also going to be giving some suggestions of teams that you should actually be building with the requirements before you even get the Galactic Legend. You can see that pretty clearly in our A tier. Qui-Gon Jinn, Dark Trooper, and Mara Jade. None of these three characters are required to unlock C, but these are characters that are crucial to the teams that are going into the requirements. So without further ado, let's get into our S tier. And we mentioned this on our last video. The way that these characters are tiered in here isn't to say that, you know, Vader is a higher tier character than Mar is. The point of the tiering in this system is to say that you should go after this character first, either because they're more accessible, or because they're better on their own, or because you already have a team built for them, etc. So again, S tier starting off, Darth Vader. The reason why Darth Vader is really #1 on this list is because when you're building a roster, he's a character that just never really goes out of style. CG has kind of made a way for him to work in every single area of the game, whether it be beginning, mid, or end game. In the end game, he ends up going under Lord Vader or Alpha or Starkiller. Three great places for him. But in the very beginning, let's say you're just kind of building things up, he can solo a lot of lower level teams, even some slightly higher ones like the Geonosians. He can go in there, and typically I like to take in 1 or 2 sides just to be safe. Thrawn's really good in that, where he can kind of help facilitate, but he's just great overall. He can also go with Emperor Palpatine if you already have him unlocked and you have his leadership Zeta that can help generate a lot of turn meter. Because one of the really cool things that Vader does that allows him to, again, solo a lot of those beginning teams is he has Merciless Massacre. And basically what this does is it allows him to take like 6 or 7 turns in a row where he just gets to go around, probably cull someone, kills them right off the bat. He has his AoE in here as well, where he can go ahead back and push back turn meter and also put speed down. So again, when you're building things, a nice tool to have from the get-go, so that he can either be a part of another team or just be a part of his own team and do a lot of really cool things like that. The next two are going to kind of go hand in hand, and actually not even really. I guess let's talk about Piet first. Piet is one of the best characters in the entire game. This is a character that everyone should have. I don't care if you're going for C or Executor or neither, doesn't matter. He is a character you have, and I would even go as far to say that his Emperor's Trap Zeta is the best Zeta in the entire game. It is just head and shoulders above everything. For those who don't know what it does, it essentially creates this buff over all of your Empire characters that every single time they take a turn in a row with the rest of their allies, they're gaining 6% offense and potency per stack. And what this ends up doing on, let's say, a Darth Vader team where he's getting Merciless Massacre, that he's getting 6% offense every single time he's shifting through one of those turns. So by the end of it, he's got a really nice big chunk of offense and potency, 2 stats that he cares a lot about. Palpatine also cares a lot about this in a Mara Jade team, but ultimately where the Piet really truly shines is going to be under Veer's, because if we look under Veer's leadership, they gain 10% turn meter whenever they gain a buff. So every single time one of your guys is getting a turn, or assisting for that matter, I didn't mention that, they're gaining not only, you know, all that crucial offense and potency, but they're gaining turn meter on top of it. And it pretty much, you end up making a team that as long as you go first, or sometimes even if you don't, you're just going to be able to run over the enemy team. This is incredible. If you talk to anyone who's already done this, they are taking, most of the people who go after Piet very quickly are using gear 9 or 10 characters to beat fully relic teams, because all you have to do is go in front of them. And that's even kind of easy to do with Piet's base speed, along with Veer's leadership also gives 20 extra speed. So there are a lot more intricacies to the Imperial Trooper team that make them very good, but ultimately the two most important things are Veers and Piet. You can't really start with other characters. Dark Trooper is a great character, but you can't start making a team out of Dark Trooper. You have to start here. So these are the S tier. These are the ones that you need to just farm first, get them out of the way, and they will already start paying dividends almost immediately. So now we get to the A tier, and our A tier is going to be a little funny because, as you can see, and we've already mentioned, there's 3 characters in here that aren't even Sith Eternal requirements, and we'll get to those. So I guess let's start off with a character that is a Sith Eternal requirement, and that is Emperor Palpatine. We've already talked about him several times with Vader. He's very good on his own. Even with just Darth Vader having the two of them on the team, they can generate a lot of turn meter, run over a lot of those teams that just don't have any way to mitigate it. Very good in that sense. He's also just really accessible and needed for other Galactic Legends, and arguably the best comp for Starkiller as well. So overall, just a character that if you gear him up, he's going to end up having a home. He has a lot of fun ways, especially his lead was closer to the beginning of the game, and one of the things that we see with that is there is a less niche use for his kit, and it was made more wide. It was made to work with more characters, so when you're building a roster, you don't have to find all those little itty-bitty characters to kind of shove into his team to make it work. He has a tendency to work with a wide range of characters, because, I mean, if you want to look up Empire and Sith, the lists are huge. So he's definitely first, and then I'll try to figure out the best way to do this. Let's talk about Mara Jade next. So the reason why Mara Jade is in here is she's not, again, needed for Sith Eternal. She is needed for Starkiller, so that's kind of a fun bonus. But the level that she takes Emperor Palpatine to, especially in Territory Wars, is just something else. Every single problem that Emperor Palpatine needed a solution to, she has the solution. If your team doesn't have enough potency or the enemy has tenacity up, she has a solution for that. She can apply tenacity down. If your team isn't fast enough to be able to go out in front and you need to be able to do that, you can apply the Omicron to her in TW and she will get 100% turn meter to start, so that she'll always do that. If you need a character to help facilitate a lot of the debuffs right off the bat, or if an enemy is starting to gain turn meter and you need to shock them, she has a way around that. So she was specifically built with all these mechanics to make Emperor Palpatine not just good, he was already kind of good, but to make him relevant in the modern meta. And if you can do that on a building roster, it's just a significant boost. So again, not required for Sith Eternal, but if you have Palpatine, you really should look into her as being a secondary team, and the rest can be kind of fodder. You can throw in Grand Moff Tarkin or Krennic or Sidious. It doesn't matter at that point. Those two will carry pretty darn hard. Next up is going to be Dark Trooper. So we talked about him a little bit when we were going over the Trooper team with Veers and Piet. Dark Trooper is the third most essential character for an Imperial Trooper team. This is pretty obvious because in 3v3, you'll actually see that the 3v3 team is Veers, Piet, and Dark. And he takes the Imperial Troopers to another level. A lot of the times if they can go first, they can already kill everything. But if there's something on the enemy team that is starting to catch up and you have to get through quickly, you can't wait for Emperor's Trap to build up for the offense. You actually have to just kill them now. Dark Trooper is the way to do it. The dude has a ridiculous amount of offense. One of the other things that's really important about his kit is that he is going to deal damage 4 times because he has starts with 4 stacks. And when you multiply that by the amount of offense he's getting both from his own kit and Piet, he just starts to do some really stinking crazy damage. Very, very good character. Not super versatile in the sense that he can't work on a whole lot of teams, but in the Imperial Trooper lineup that you already have from the S tier, he is going to just be amazing. The next two are going to be Jedi Anakin and Qui-Gon Jinn. Jedi Anakin himself is the requirement. He's a very good character as a Jedi. He's crucial for either a Padme or Qui-Gon Jinn team. And can just already start doing a lot right out the box. And I will say this, if you do already have Padme unlocked, maybe forget Qui-Gon Jinn for the moment, just because you're probably not going to be able to make, well, maybe you are, depending on your roster. You're probably not going to be able to make 2 really solid teams at that point for being able to split the 2. But these 2 alone, similar to Palp and Mara, you can just kind of throw junk on the rest of the team, like a Luminara, a Jedi Consular. It doesn't really matter. These 2 alone will just do a tremendous amount of work. It should be said that this is GAC specific, and it is also reliant on Qui-Gon Jinn's Omicron, which is why what I said earlier about if you already have Padme, maybe just forget Qui-Gon Jinn for the second, just because not only does Jedi Anakin already have a home there, but on top of that, it's a home that is usable in every single game mode and not just GAC, as great as Qui-Gon Jinn is in GAC. So that's going to be our A tier. These first two tiers are really characters that you want no matter what. Even if you're not going for the Galactic Legend, these are must-haves in both these two. Now we go down to the B tier. And the B tier are where the characters are still a really good idea, but they are going to complement teams that we already have that are existing from the first two. So Colonel Stark, pretty good. The main thing that he does is add a lot of buffs to the Imperial Trooper team to help kind of speed up that train. Not quite a necessity. You can actually build a lot of good Imperial Trooper teams without him. But if you have to do him for C, you might as well get him up early so that you can help enhance that team right off the bat. He also can lower the enemy's turn meter, which is typically a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. Looking at you, Nest. Next up is Thrawn. This feels weird, actually, to have Thrawn this low down the list. There's probably a pretty good argument to put him in the A tier, actually, but I can only put 5 characters in there. Really versatile character. I guess the reason why he might be here, too, is because he's not... While he is good on an Empire team, he's not tied to it. He's good in a lot of other places. Yeah, he really should probably be higher, especially because it's going to feel really weird having him next to Tarkin, which, yeah, I'm already regretting this. These two characters really don't belong in the same tier. And the reason why Tarkin's here is because he can facilitate a lot of the other teams, not nearly as much as Thrawn, but the real reason he's here is because of this. His ship is currently right now one of the most important capital ships because of Interceptor and the Scythe. I imagine most people going after C right now probably don't already have Scythe, so maybe that's kind of a moot point. But what he's able to do right now in the meta is quite impressive, and really the Empire fleets in general are doing right now is very impressive. There's a way to split between the two of them to counter both Executor and Profundity, which is very fantastic. You'll notice that I have a pretty weird mod combination on him just to get his speed up for his ship specifically. So Thrawn overall, very good plug and play. Tarkin's ship is good, and then Colonel Stark helps facilitate the Imperial Troopers. So yeah, I'd really probably regret my order there, but we're just going to stick with it for now. Next up is C tier, and C tier, really, these are our fillers. They're not bad characters necessarily. You probably should have them at some point, but they're really not first priority. I mean, Dooku, you can throw him in like any Separatist or Sith team, and he'll do something. Like, he's got stuns. That's nice. He counters. That's also kind of nice. Like on a Traya team, maybe if you can counter and hit a debuffed character, then he heals your team. That's something useful. Marauder's okay. Most of Marauder's value, I would say, is actually in his ship as well. It's very good. It's, again, currently being used to beat Profundity and Executor in some situations, so that's kind of nice for him. Oh, he's not bad. He's just not really changing the majority of counters. He has a lot of things that have aged well, specifically this unique right here that gives him a lot of buffs, depending on how many buffs or debuffs are in the field. And when he first came out, there weren't that many teams that were just super buff or debuff heavy. Now there are. So he's, like I said, he's aged quite well. He's able to gain a lot of stuff off of that. And then Royal Guard. Royal Guard's really... either he's zero or he's a hero. If you have Lord Vader, gosh, is he good. But we're going into the assumption that, again, if you're going after C, you might have Lord Vader. You might, but you probably don't. And so Royal Guard, he's a good filler for some other teams. He can go in an Emperor Palpatine team. He can go in a Vader team. It's not terrible in either of those, but he's really just not doing a whole lot to shine there. Whereas, again, with the Lord Vader team, he's actually very, very good and I would say very, very important. So kind of falls somewhere in the middle there, similar to how Tarkin, where his value isn't probably right up front, but it does come in the end. And last and very much least is our D tier category. So these characters, they're not complete trash, but they're pretty close. You're gonna find like 1 or 2 examples where they can be good, and those are cool, but you're not going to use them every single battle. I mean, maybe if your roster is a lot smaller and you're still developing a lot of things, you'll put them as like backwall fodder or something, like a Maul lead team. I don't have a Zeta. There's been times with certain Datacrons where the Zeta lead was actually good with like the Vadercron and whatnot, but overall, again, these are not high value characters. I would really encourage anyone, if you're not going for a Galactic Legend, or rather, if you're not going for C, these are the characters that you should probably never gear. They're just not that good. Darth Maul, I will say this about him. There has been quite a bit of leaks recently in regards to a Sith fleet. He might actually go up a lot in value for the same reason that Marauder or Tarkin would be, because he holds a lot of value there. As it stands, the Scimitar is actually a pretty bad ship. I see a lot of people put it in a lot of different comps, and it tends to make them easier. So not a huge fan of that right now, which is why he's still going to stay down here. Krennic, I've heard like a few people say that he does like a one really cool thing or something like that as well. Sidious kind of had a very small moment in the sun when the Trayacron was like super OP and we were able to use it. We needed his healing immunity to be able to beat Lord Vader. And honestly, the healing immunity is a pretty nice utility to have even on a C team itself. But again, the whole point of this video is to show you what characters to farm building up to C. So this assumption is also assuming you don't even have them unlocked. So that is going to be it. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if there are any other characters that are really kind of fitting the Mara Jade or the Dark Trooper type of class where they're not required, but they basically should be if you're wanting to get the best bang for your buck. And I won't lie, I really do like C as a Galactic Legend, because if you follow this guide or a guide similar to this, you end up with 4 that not just like doable, not just filler, but like 4 very good functional teams who should be able to make 2 Empire splits between Vader and Palpatine, a really good Imperial Trooper team, and then on top of that, a Qui-Gon Jinn, or really a Jedi Anakin team with either Qui-Gon Jinn or Padme. So, again, let me know what you guys think, and as always, stay awesome.